All right, we'll go ahead and get this kicked off. Welcome to the third Microsoft and You webinar. I'm going to be your host again, Ted Brown, Director of Product Management here at Ntiva. And today we're going to talk about Outlook tips and tricks. So for our agenda today, we're going to cover saving emails and archiving, as well as in there kind of what Office 365 licensing can allow you to store as much Outlook emails that you want to save. Also get into the inbox folder systems and how how you can use it would make sense to you, organizational tips within there, and kind of get into some rules you can create. As well as get into some little calendar tricks, some keyboard shortcuts that I like to use. I know some people like to do anything that makes the day go by quicker. Any quick little things you do on the keyboard can help speed up your day and get tasks done faster. Have a couple of other tips that didn't fall into any main category. Also kind of get into why you still want to back up your system within Office 365 and then potential training opportunities you can take as part of Ntiva for any type of Outlook training that you might be interested in. So as per other webinars we had, just a little housekeeping at the beginning of this. If anyone has any questions, we'll definitely save that for the end of the webinar. So I'll answer any and all questions. I also like to answer any and all questions that might pertain to any webinars I've done in the past. So anything with Microsoft licensing you want to ask, or anything with Windows 11, happy to answer this as part of this webinar, as well as anything Outlook tip and tricks. Please use the Q&A section of the Zoom feature here, and I'll go through that at the end of this webinar. So with a couple of key terms I want to get into before we start the webinar is really just two of them here, OST and PST. And I've been doing doing IT for many, many years, and these always have come up in the past of how we want to make sure to handle people's Outlook systems. OST is an offline Outlook data file. This is a fantastic data file because it's what it allows people to do is basically access your email from your local exchange at your office if you happen to be using local exchange there, or most people are using Office 365 today. So accessing it via the cloud and having all the emails appear in your Outlook inbox. But what it does on the Outlook, on the offline file, is it actually saves everything to a file per some data in there saying, hey, if you want to save it for a month, save it for a year or 3 years, or have an unlimited amount of storage that are on your computer, it will actually save those files onto your computer. So when you open up your Outlook, and if you don't happen to be connected to the internet, you'll still have access to all those emails that you have when you're connected to the email. This is perfect when you're traveling on an airplane, say you don't want to pay the ridiculous amount of money for the Wi-Fi on the airplane. You can still access all your emails that you have in your inbox, type up your emails, and then hit a send button if you wanted to. And then when you get connected back into a network or plug back into your home office, it will send any of the emails out that you had written while you're on that plane. So it's a great file to use. And it's also nice to help speed up your functionality within Outlook as well. Because what it does is it stores a cache locally of all your files on your computer within Outlook. And so what this does is as you're accessing the latest inbox file within Outlook, it's accessing it from your computer there instead of from the cloud. So it does speed up some functionality using an offline Outlook data file. The other one here is PST file. This is an Outlook data file, and this was a great feature for doing archive files. So for a long time, many people were limited to the amount of space they were able to save within their Outlook data file. Not too long ago, you had people that were saying, hey, 250 megabytes was as much storage you should save within Outlook. Maybe it went up to a gigabyte, maybe 2 gigabytes as far as the maximum capacity you have in Outlook. Nowadays, with Office 365, it's fantastic. You can get 50 gigabyte mailboxes, you can get 100 gigabyte mailboxes. You have and then with archive storage, you can have it up to another 1.5 terabytes of data. So extremely unlimited amount of storage you can have with Office 365. But with the PST file back in the day, what people would do is use this for your archiving. So you can only save as many files as you need it within your Outlook data file within your inbox, and then they would archive it to a separate file, which was great because it kept it out of your total storage. But what it did was it actually created a separate file on your computer that would save there on that computer you were using at that time, and you couldn't access it from anywhere else. For me, the PST file is kind of archaic. It's not really as useful as it once was. And I do recommend people start taking a look at the opportunities they can use for the online archive within Office 365 to remove their PST files altogether. The beauty of this is you have access to these files wherever you go. So the online archive file within Microsoft 365 will be available for you when you're on your Outlook on your computer, or say if you go travel, you want to access the portal through outlookportal.com, you get on there, you can actually see your online archive, which is very nice and handy. And I'll show you a little tip here in a second for that. So for saving emails and archiving, kind of getting back into the whole PST thing. So for online archiving within Office 365, which is available with the E3 and E5, as well as a couple of the other licensing SKUs in Microsoft 365, you actually get 1.6 terabytes of space available to use with your email box. That's a significant amount of space to use. It used to be kind of called unlimited, but there is a functional limit on this. So 1.6 terabytes right now is the total limit. What this is comprised of 100 gigabytes of inbox storage, as well as 1.5 terabytes of archive stores. And so what this looks like, here, I'll bring over my mailbox right now, is right here, you'll see my name, Ted Brown at Ntiva. So this is anything underneath this little caret is my main mailbox. And so this main mailbox is, right now I have a Microsoft 365 E5 license, so it gives me 100 gigabytes of available space within my Outlook data file. And I can see how much space I'm using. So if you go ahead and right click on your name here, go to properties, you have folder size. This folder size will comprise of local data and server data. The local data here represents the amount of stored the used space of the OST file, your offline sync file. As you can see here, I have 18 gigabytes of used space on my Outlook sync file, which sounds kind of like a lot, but I have a 100 gigabyte limit within Office 365, so I'm well underneath that limit. And if I click on the server data file here, it will take a second, but what this will do, it will actually show me the spread of where all my emails live within the Office 365 of my whole mailbox storage all together. And while that pulls up, I want to go really show you storage limits within Microsoft 365. So this kind of little feature here, the spreadsheet shows you what type of storage limits you have when using Office 365. So some people use Microsoft 365 Business Basic, Business Standard. Microsoft 365 Business Premium is very hot SKU right now. The mailbox size you get with those are 50 gigabytes. So like I show you here underneath your little name here, you have 50 gigabytes of storage. And for most people, that might be plenty. But for some, we see many people go, hey, I need more than 50. And that's when you go to the 100 gigabyte limit. That's when you get into the Office 365 E3s, E5s, as well as the Microsoft 365 E3 and 5s will give you that 100 gigabyte limit there. The key part that I was telling you about with the online archiving is this online archiving piece here. So with the 365 Business Basic, you get 50 gigabytes. Archive for the standard, you get 50 gigabytes. And then for the Microsoft Business Premium, you do start getting that 1.5 terabytes of space. You can see you get that with E3 and E5 as well. Very beneficial. It's not too much of an upgrade from Business Standard, Business Premium to take advantage of that 1.5. And again, I think the beauty of the Microsoft licensing suite they have out there is you don't have to have a mass swath of the same license type for everybody in your organization. So say if you have a couple of VPs that need to have that archive mailbox, maybe those users have the higher license while everyone else might not need that capacity for email. They can use the Business Standard, Business Basic, whatever functionality makes sense with them. So back to my mailbox. So you can see here, I had 18 gigabytes of storage on my local data, and I'm using 31 gigabytes of space within Outlook as a whole. And so that keeps it well underneath that 100 gigabyte limit. The neat thing here is if I click on this button, I have my online archive down here. So this online archive is my archive email that I save, and everything gets sent here that's older than a year. I've been part of Ntiva, had my mailbox since 2003, I want to say. I really don't delete emails. Everything is still maintained within this email structure. I have migrated everything to my online archive. In fact, while preparing for this tips and tricks, I was trying to find what my oldest email was in here. And I did find something in here. Once it pops up, it will say, 2004. So I have emails from back to 2004 in here that I can actually go back and reference. Now, will I ever get to them? Probably not, but someone like me, I really feel like I always want to maintain access to all my emails, and I never delete them. They're always stored in some sort of function and files repository here. So I do have access to go back to get it. So long and short of this is definitely recommend taking a look at what Office 365 licensing structure makes sense for you and how to take advantage of that and to get the most space available for you to take that functionality and never have to delete an email if you don't need to, and you can save everything you need within the Outlook data storage within Office 365. Another question people come up to me is like journaling. Can I do journaling? What does that mean? So journaling is kind of like saving emails and archiving emails. I like journaling for companies that have any type of compliance needs. And what this does is it's actually a third-party separated program outside of your either local exchange or Office 365. And what we'll do is it will actually use a connector from Office 365 to pull any email that you're sending to that repository. Any email that you're receiving gets sent to that repository as well. The benefit of this is it makes it so it cannot be changed at all. So it's a nice reporting feature to see what all emails coming in and what emails are going out to anybody that's sending emails from your organization. This is necessary for people that need to adhere to like FINRA compliance, or maybe they have some CMMC compliance. They need to make sure to have everything captured, as well as categorized and ability to search for key terms. And that's where these journaling companies will come in and actually make a nice little UI for you to take a look at and do some key searches in there to find if anyone's sending any emails that might pertain to any PII or social security numbers or something along like that. And so definitely recommend take a look at journaling for those types of usages, as well as any clients that are in some litigation. Now, with clients in litigation, you can take advantage of the Microsoft 365 suite with doing the litigation hold, but also I find that kind of be a reactionary, where if you already had journaling set up, everything's within the repository at this third party, and you can find things within there and do the key search terms for anything along the lines of what is going through that litigation. So very handy to use, but it's also kind of like insurance. It's always best to have it set up prior before you need it. Inbox folder system. So Outlook is a fabulous program. It's a great application. It's an amazing way to communicate with everybody within your organization, internally and externally. Also on top of that, it is a file system. It's a file structure, it's an organizational tool on how you want to find these communications that you've had with your internal employees or external clients to see how to maintain that type of correspondence, understand where this information is. So when you take a look at like trying to figure out how to do Outlook tips and tricks, organization is a personal thing. How you keep things organized in your house is probably makes sense to you, might not make sense to your spouse. How you want to make sure your desk is clean, or maybe you like things kind of messy. That's really a personal preference of how you want to have things set up within your Outlook data folder. So some of these little tricks I have here make sense for me, and just maybe give you some ideas of what might make sense for you for your workflow. But when you think of the folder structure within Outlook, I definitely like to make sure that I have key things at the tips of my fingertips that I use continuously. And so for me, is I like to try to use the favorites, or maybe put things at the top of my Outlook box that I use on a day-to-day basis. So let me bring up my calendar again, or my Outlook again. So within here, you have a folder structure underneath your inbox. So you definitely can always create a right click on your name, hit new folder. A lot of people like to keep things underneath their inbox, right click, new folder. Within here, you can set things to be alphabetized with A through Z, which is for me is definitely a better way to do it, so you know what folders to look from. But sometimes the organization doesn't make sense for having it A through Z. Some folders need to be at the top. And so for those, I do take advantage of making sure that I have the underscore. I've gotten carried away with a couple underscores. So they will jump up to the top. Like I put one here for my webinar 2022, put the little underscore here, and it will come to the top of my, my folder structure here when I do alphabetize it as well. Now, the favorites piece here will be another way of actually getting around that, where you can actually right click, add a favorites, and it will pop up here into your favorites listing. So it'll be at the top of your Outlook box in case you need to have quick access to it. along with these lines is you can actually start creating some some nice ways of doing flagging and categorizing. I do like taking advantage of the categorization of emails, so I can actually do some searches on emails. So within my email box, I can come in here, and then I can actually go to flag and search by different categories. So say if I come in here and want to grab a file that I want to actually categorize, I can right click, categorize here, all categories. And from here, I have different categories I have created for my folder structures I want to take advantage of: billing, important, integration, presentation, product review, and vendors. And you can create as many as you want within here. Just add a nice little color coding, which makes sense to you, and click OK. And then you can add that category to that specific email. So from now on, I can right click on here and go to categorize and put this as test. And so when I look at my categories, I can sort by them: vendor, test, presentation, so I can bring them up to whatever makes sense to me, again, where they find within my Outlook box. Now with this, you can take it a step further. Again, you have your categories and you have your folders. And maybe I have a certain thing that I like to see from people sending to me that I get all the time, and I want to create a rule, and it can actually auto categorize it as well as auto put it into a specific folder. And that's when you really start getting into taking advantage of the rules you have in Microsoft 365. So I can go over here to click File, click on Rules, and when here, click on New Rule. I usually like taking advantage of just starting from the blank. So I'm going to look at Apply Rules on Messages I Receive, click on Next. And here you have a different list of another list of options. Again, we pick on here what makes sense with specific word and subject through a specific account, only sent to me, maybe someone through a specific words in the body of the email, or both subject and body. So I can click here, specific words, and we'll say presentation. Click add, click OK, and I'll click next. Now what do I want to do after I get this email that has a presentation in the subject? I'll go ahead and I want to move it to a certain folder. I'm going to specify it going to my webinar folder, as well as maybe assign it to a category. I'll click on category. Again, it'll bring up that category list I had before. I'll go ahead and set it to presentation and click OK. Click next and click finished. I have a couple error messages in my Outlook on my rules I've created for plenty of them before, and click OK. So now that will do is that will actually make it so any email that comes through with presentation to me will automatically move to that folder I want to have it in, which I have here in my favorites, webinar 2022, and automatically categorize it with the category presentations. And so I do have email set to go. I'll do a little test and have it come through. But this way, it actually makes it so you work faster and more efficient. So your categories and how you want to see things automatically happen as you start getting emails. It puts it in the same type of folder structure you have. So I don't know if, like me, I have busy day-to-day, things are always happening. So the more I can take advantage of doing automation tricks like this within Outlook, helps me be more efficient within my day and make sure that I understand where things are happening. As you can see here, while I was just explaining that, I just shot that email. It went directly to my webinar folder, put it in here, and already auto categorized it. You see presentation right there. So again, this makes sense for me. Don't know if it makes sense for you, but you can play around with your workflow. And as you start kind of categorizing things and seeing how the efficiency might build up for you, you can see the advantages going to more using that categorization as well as folder structure. Next, I want to get into a little tricks I like to use with calendar. These aren't too wild and crazy, but I do find these being very useful, and again, saves me time. With how busy the day is, often get emails going, hello, let's have a call at XYZ. Well, now if I want to find out if I'm available at XYZ time, you click on your mailbox, your Outlook calendar here, try to see where your time is. Then you got to come back here to your Outlook, reply to the message. And again, you're taking extra steps. What I like to do is I like to take a look here. One, if you hover your mouse over Outlook, it will bring up a little view of what you're doing that day. You can scroll through it to see if it makes sense. But again, as you type back and forth, it goes away. One, people like to use the docked peek here, which will put it into the right-hand side of your Outlook. I personally don't like this. I like as much space as possible with my Outlook folder, so I actually usually keep this off. What I do like to use is open a new window. So if I right click and open new window, it will bring up my Outlook calendar here. And from here, I can use, and I still snap it into the left-hand side, grab my calendar here, and then I can actually scroll around here, find the correct time, reply back to it so I can see it and see everything in one little screen. Most of the time I have multiple screens, so I'll put one on each screen. And this way will be a nice way to actually find what time works for you, especially if you're trying to see what might be available on someone else's calendar. Now, speaking of someone else's calendar, I know we're all meeting a lot. And so I like to also take advantage of the scheduling assistant within Outlook calendar. So you got your scheduling assistant right here, which will actually help to make sure you find the correct time available to you when you actually want to meet with somebody. So I'm going to invite a couple people here. That's one green. Liar. And go here. I like Teams meetings. Go ahead and set a Teams meeting here, and there's scheduling assistant. And with scheduling assistant, you can do an auto pick and find what times might work for you, for everyone available for that meeting itself. There's fresh availability. Scroll here, and at the top you can see the blocks that are available. So I can see here I have available time at 12, available time at 3. So you can actually do a nice little quick view of finding what works for everybody without having to go to individual calendars and go in that direction. So I find that a nice little time saver going through for my Outlook calendars. The next thing I want to get into is some keyboard shortcuts. So there's a handful of shortcuts I use here. Again, I like to try to do things to try to speed up my day. The Control-1 and Control-2, I actually use pretty frequently. Now I'll explain what that does. Control-1, if you click in here, let's see here, I'll go back to calendar. So on calendar, if I do Control-1, it'll switch back to my email. Control-2 will go back to calendar, so back and forth. So kind of nice little quick way to actually go back between your calendar and your email. Now the other ones that use, you can do like a, you have a Control-R, which will do reply to this email. So you Control-R, reply to that email. Again, that one I don't use too often because it's just really pretty easy to actually just hit reply. And then you have the Control-Shift-M, which will actually bring up another message for creating a new message, which is popping up another screen in mine. But what I like to do for those is use the right click on the mailbox on the Outlook down here in your task tray and utilize here new email. So the ones I use for keyboard shortcuts all the time, Control-1, Control-2 are a nice little time saver. And there's another keyboard shortcut here I'm getting to in a second. And that will fall into other tips and tricks. Now, again, all about saving time. For me, that's the kind of the big thing for the Outlook tips and tricks here is how can you save enough time, make you more efficient. Using templates for emails you send a lot. It's a fantastic way to speed up your day. So I have to send some orders for, say, building any type of Azure structure. It has to make sure to meet certain categories and have certain information I need to put within the email. So within these templates, you can click on New. And at the right-hand side, you have your View Your Templates. You can click on View Templates, and you can see the ones you have already created. So I have the one I create and use called Azure Ad. I'll click on this, and it will have the information I need to send for when creating new Azure subscriptions and pop it in there. There's other ones here. You have, a classic one of, hey, you're in a meeting, it's running late, and you can click on that without having to type it in. Or you want to create a new one. You can put it right here. This is a test. So again, whatever makes sense to you, put it right here, build out your template, and that will always be available to you when you're actually creating a new email. So definitely advise you if you have something you're doing continuously in the same way every time, create a quick little template and it'll be available to you so you don't have to type it out every time. The other one that's sometimes nice to use if you get put onto a whole bunch of correspondence that you don't need to be a part of. Don't recommend doing this with your boss, but it's nice sometimes to ignore the conversations that you're not really part of, but you might be on there. So if you right click on any email, there's an ignore feature here. And what that ignore feature will do is that part of the conversation you're part of, it will actually automatically be sent to your deleted items. So you can see here, if anyone sent me an email with the presentation subject line, it will be sent right directly to my deleted folder. Now, say if you want to go back through and remove that, and click on your deleted folder again, you can see here your ignore button is depressed. So you can press it again, stop ignoring conversations. And from there, now all the email address, all those mailbox items would come back to your inbox. Now, since I had this in a folder, the folder rule doesn't take place because it was when it was coming. The rule is when it actually comes into my mailbox, it does a rule. But since the rule that was already run, and this is something that's already in the mailbox, that's why it's not here within this folder. So I want to make sure to kind of show you how that rule works. It is only when it comes into your mailbox. The other neat feature I like to use, and this is the other keyboard trick I was talking about, is the sticky notes for reminders. Some people use sticky notes when it was the a widget that you can add into your system, or maybe in the long ago, they actually installed a version of sticky notes. But it is a built-in functionality within Outlook. So within Outlook, you can do a Control-Shift-In, and it'll bring up a sticky note. Now, this could be a quick note. Make sure send email XYZ. Now, again, I don't recommend using this for like tasks you need to do, because Microsoft does have a nice way to categorize your tasks. But I do use this feature when make sure I want to send an email to somebody, or hey, I don't want to forget something before the end of the day. Not quite a task, but it's more of a reminder. And I'll put this up here, so I'll have many notes going on. So when I close down for the day, I know if I've taken care of that. Because when I right-click on my email here, all right, click on my email, you can see here I have my untitled note. So I have many notes going on. So as I close down for the day, I can know if I took care of it or not. So again, that is Control-Shift-In to bring up this little quick notes and sticky notes thing. I do find it pretty functional. One of the other pieces I want to get into is to back up your data. We might run a little bit over here. I got 2 or 3 more slides. I hope you all don't mind. But backing up your data, especially if you're using Office 365, is extremely important. So yes, it's great you have your 1.6 terabytes information within Outlook. You can always get to it. But Microsoft 365 does not back up your system. They do have restore options, and I use restore. It's not a backup. It's basically something they put into what's called a recycling bin. And these recycling bins have a duration of time of how long they'll actually maintain these files and folders. So I have it here. You can see 14 to 93 days. So for Microsoft email, usually you have a backup of retention of within recycle bin of 14 to 30 days. And then with your OneDrive, SharePoint, those typically fall into that 93 category for how long you recover those files. So I definitely recommend using a third-party product to back up your systems, because Microsoft does not have that in there. So this will help maintain any potential malware or ransom attacks that might occur, any malicious end-user activity. So basically, maybe you had somebody in your organization that just was fed up with things and wanted to delete their entire mailbox. And then after 30 days, you won't be able to recover those files again. Now, if you're using Journaly, yeah, you can go back through and see all the emails they sent and received, but it would not be in their same structure they had within their Outlook folder. So I definitely recommend, if you take advantage of the backup and system within these other third-party programs, you can always have access to those files, because it is backed up 4 times a day, every week, 365 days a year, and some of them have unlimited storage. The other thing I see sometimes is maybe if somebody was accidentally removed from the system, they weren't supposed to be removed, and the mailbox got the license key, it got assigned to somebody else, and it removed the mailbox. You can recover from the backup. So again, highly recommend investigating 365 backups, because it is not included within the offer structure that Microsoft has. And the last piece here I want to get into is Outlook training. So there's a bunch of nuances and tips and tricks you can get within Outlook. People, I think, always trying to find a better way to do things faster, more efficient, what workflow works with them. And one thing I want to make sure to highlight here is Ntiva does have a on-demand training program within Microsoft Suite that does video-based training. So I recommend talking to your account manager if you're not taking advantage of it right now. And it does have, you can see here, I took a couple screenshots of Microsoft Outlook 2019 Essentials, Power Users or Pro. Down below, I have a list of kind of what some of the categories they have in here. And these are all video-based trainings. And I have a link here. I can kind of show you what it looks like. So this is the Ntiva training portal. And I have a course library here. Within the course library, I can come down to Office 2019. And then here they have a whole bunch of different kind of training opportunities, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, the main ones they have, and then also your Outlook Essentials, Power Users, and Pro. And when I click on the Pro one, you can see here it has, hey, searching. I know searching sometimes can be hard within Office 365 or within Outlook of how you properly search for different terms. Maybe you want to do a concatenated search or have an and or. And you can click on this here to get a 3-minute little training of doing a search using advanced find. So I can click on this. It won't actually hear it, but you can see it's a video-based training. You can get quick information, and I like to call it more of an on-demand training type of module. You can come in here and take a look at a course that makes sense for you to use. Maybe you want to get more, hey, I like the rules tips that you give. Hey, I want to click on the rules and get a nice little 6-minute tutorial on how to use rules. So these are opportunities that are at the fingertips for us to take advantage of, and I highly recommend you reaching out to your account manager if you'd like to get more information about the backup as well as the training as a service that Ntiva can provide. And that's all I have to go through today for Outlook's tips and tricks. I hope you found it beneficial and informative. And if anyone has any questions, happy to go through it. So please use the Q&A section of Zoom. I think we have here. Please explain the focused and other. Is there a way to view messages as a thread? Well, the focus and other, I actually like to use focus and other. It took, I have to admit, it took a little bit to use it. I found it was a lot of things. Actually, you can see here 37,000 messages unread, but most of it has to do with my other. And so the other does categorize. It takes things that thinks might be junk they might not need to look at. I do go through this, but what I'd like to do is as you start using this, it will train itself. So maybe there's things that fall into your other category, and you can right click on it and you can say move to focus. So this message sent to me would always be in my focus email. The key part here is I like to use the always move to focus. This will make this email sent to me always within my focus email. So as you start using the focus and other, you do need a training a little bit to make sure that you have the correct information going to your focus. So then at some point you can just kind of occasionally take a look at your other to make sure that it is categorizing correctly. It does take a little time getting the nuance of using it, but I do believe once I start understanding how it works, it does exactly what it says. It helps me focus on the emails that are most important to me. Any other questions anybody has? I'm happy to answer anything else. Again, happy to do with any Microsoft licensing questions as well as when Windows 11. All right, well, that looks like about it for today then. Well, I really appreciate you, everyone joining this webinar and going through the Outlook's tips and tricks with me. I look forward to talking to you more in Q2. We'll have the listing of what the webinars are coming out soon, so you can go ahead and register for any upcoming webinar in Q2. And I look forward to talking with you all soon. Enjoy your day.